I'm enjoying the ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Yeah!
And now more Operation Freedom with your host, Dr. Dave Janda, on Southeast Michigan's conservative powerhouse, Wham Talk 1600. Call Dave now at 822-1600. That's 734-822-1600.
Welcome back to Operation Freedom, folks. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting live from Wham Talk 1600's Freedom Bunker. We're here every Sunday from 3 to 5 Eastern. Again, you're going to want to download this interview. All you have to do is go to davejanda.com by tomorrow morning and download this podcast and network it to anyone and everyone you know. It is about their safety, their security, and their financial freedom. I am very, very proud and honored to have back with us one of my favorites, Karen Hudes. She is a freedom fighter of the highest order, folks. She is a graduate of Yale University Law School. She worked as a lawyer and a senior counsel for the World Bank for 21 years. She has taken on the courageous role of being not only a freedom fighter, but a whistleblower of what can only be described of the corrupt activity at the World Bank. Karen, welcome back to Operation Freedom.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I can't tell you how happy I am to be back with you all.
Well, I'm happy you're back, Karen. You're a very courageous individual, and you are very enlightening. Every time you come on air, I get tremendous positive feedback from our listeners. Karen, do you believe that your alma mater, the World Bank, has devolved into a corrupt entity benefiting multinational corporations and banking conglomerates and their families at the expense of the law-abiding public worldwide?
I have to answer your question two ways. It's not my alma mater.
Yeah, well,
I'm
that's
still
true.
very much back there. I've been reinstated.
Oh!
The World Bank annual meetings are going on. The only reason I'm not there is because the security guards are coming from a company called Allied Barton, which is owned by the culprits. The culprits are a group of, it's a conglomerate of financial companies that think that they're above the law. And, of course, there are groups behind those companies, such as the Jesuits, that are in control of Citibank, and they used to be in control of Bank of America. And also, you know, they're the companies that own the financial reserve system of the U.S. So, yes, there is a huge problem of corruption, but, I mean, think about it this way. Think of a truck, and somebody hijacks it and goes driving in the wrong direction. That's the World Bank. What's wrong is not the truck. What's wrong is the hijack. And the best thing about it is that the world is taking back the steering wheel, and it's the most fascinating thing to see. And the United States is featuring very much in the front row because we are using law. And the way I've been doing this, so that people understand, I bought a World Bank bond, so I'm not just the World Bank lawyer who was fired against the wishes of the U.S. Congress. Senator Lugar wrote 3 letters telling the World Bank not to fire me because I had gone to the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. This is when it was chaired by Joe Biden, and Senators Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were on there. But it was Senator Lugar who took, you know, the main responsibility for bringing the World Bank into compliance because this is at the very heart of the financial system, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And so when the World Bank ignored him and fired me illegally, then he and Senator Bai and also Senator Leahy commissioned a government accountability office audit, which the World Bank stonewalled. And then when it was time to approve a capital increase for the World Bank, the U.S. Congress said, we'll appropriate the money, but we won't disperse a penny until the effects of retaliation against the World Bank's whistleblowers have been eliminated. And they said they wanted to know this by getting a report from the chairman of the Secretary of the Treasury. And so when Timothy Geithner lied, I went and told the Appropriations Committee, and that's when Timothy Geithner left. So the annual meetings are just concluding, and what happened there was really fascinating. You know, I called all of the executive directors' offices, and on Monday, the Russian TV, RTTV, put on an interview, a half-hour interview with me, and ran it 4 times. sending very, very strong signals. And the second largest business website in Germany, which has 1.5 million readers every month, had an interview with me, and they went back and edited it. They said, why is it that a military helicopter buzzed the U.S. embassy, or actually the U.S. consulate in Frankfurt? And I went back, and I did a little research, and I found out that a government official had said that this was to get the United States' attention. And I had been telling the Secretary of Defense, when he was the senator to Nebraska, Chuck Hagel, I told him that a very accurate computer simulation was predicting that the United States was going to lose the ability to name the president of the World Bank. That's called the Gentleman's Agreement, and it had lasted for 66 years. The World Bank was created in 1944, and that we were going to lose it unless the World Bank, the U.S. officials inside the World Bank would follow the rule of law, would pay attention to the rest of the countries. And they didn't do that. And, they not only did they fire me, but then I couldn't get through because I later found out that all of the mainstream media is owned by the same companies that have been breaking all the rules. These are the people that have hijacked the world's financial system. And it's not just the U.S. There's something called the Bank for International Settlement, and that has 58 countries that are members. So if you're asking me what's broken, it's the Bank for International Settlement that's terribly out of whack and that is thinking that it's above the law and that it can hijack. The World Bank is like a co-op of all the countries of the world. And what's happened with the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is they have said that since the World Bank has been hijacked the way it is, and since the dollars are no longer going to serve as the international reserve currency because the people of the Federal Reserve are just going to town doing something called quantitative easing, which is they're printing money like there was no tomorrow. And this is just paper. It's and it's devaluing, and the dollars are going to crash because they have no backing. In 1971, when the U.S. went off the gold standard, that something happened in the gold market. That's called gold backwardation. What central banks do is they have gold and they lease it out, and what happened in 1971, and it started happening in July, is that there's no longer leasing because the central banks know that if they lease their gold at the end of the lease term, it's not going to come back. All they're going to get is an IOU in paper dollars. So they're losing confidence in the paper currency system. And this is very, very dangerous. If it continues to something called permanent gold backwardation, what happens is famine, pestilence, you cannot pay for any imported items because nobody has confidence in your currency. We cannot go there. And so it was very important for me to go back into the World Bank meetings. And what happened was the company that they had issuing the badges refused to give me a badge. So this is after the countries wanted me back. And so they said, all right, Karen, go to the monitor of this conference. Here's the name of the person. Here's where you call them. And I called them up, and I said, the countries that own this bank are very angry that you're running a conference without giving me a badge when they know that I have to be back in there. And then they didn't give me a badge. It was the most incredible thing. And the point was, I was weighing my steps, whether I should just try to barge in. But what happened at the last meeting when I did that was the D.C. police threw me in jail, and I thought, no, we're not going there. It's, time is really of the essence now with all these angry truckers driving to Washington. We're going to have martial law if we don't watch out. Yeah.
Right now, as you mentioned, there's a lot of things coming to a head, right? We got the trucker issue. We got our vets in there fighting and taking the barricades down. We have the government is supposedly shut down. We have a debt ceiling debacle coming at us supposedly this coming Thursday.
No, that's a lie.
Right,
What
because we don't.
happened is we hit the ceiling back on May 17th.
Right.
And after that, what happened was the Treasury Department told the states that they could not issue their own bonds, and the municipalities couldn't issue their own bonds. And then they started putting their hand in the till of the retirees, the civil servants, and also the medical plan for the postal workers. So this is totally illegal. So what I did was I went to, I live in Montgomery County, Maryland, and the county executive, Ike Leggett, is the president pro tem of something called the County Executives Association of America. And so I went to him and I said, this is a huge problem, and I need to get into the annual meetings. And I spoke to one of the people in his office, who then told me who to liaise with. And, I'm not going to point fingers or anything. There were some very, very helpful people, and then there were people at the top that chickened out. And so we're caught in a situation where the United States citizens, and one of the things that's been going on as my case is now getting more and more publicity, even without the mainstream media, is that whistleblowers that have important information are coming to me and telling me about it. And so I had said on one of the radio programs that it was important to have a constitutional convention. I found out that 49 of the 50 state legislatures have asked for the Constitutional Convention, and the Congress is just supposed to ministerially call the convention. It says they shall call the convention. So the Congress is letting the American people down by ignoring what they're required to do under the Constitution. This is, talk about lack of rule of law. When they have lost the consent of the governed and they sit on their hands, there's nothing worse than that.
Well, Karen, I believe this is kind of kabuki theater between this government shutdown and this debt ceiling issue, which, as you say, is fabrication. And then yesterday, the food stamp system, the EBT system, went down across 17 states and then intermittently in a number of other states. Then there was a report that there's a cyber attack bank drill going to happen this Thursday, the 17th, called Quantum Dawn 2. Karen, I can't, and call me a conspiracy theorist, but I can't help but think that all these things are coming together. And really, it's all smoke and mirrors, because I think what they're trying to cover up is the fact that our currency is crashing and our economy is crashing, and they're going to try to pin it on all this smoke and mirrors that's been created. Am I wrong?
You're not totally wrong, but it gets people all agitated when they hear that their economy is about to crash. And the fact of the matter is that the economy is fine. And when I'm saying this, I'm not pointing to the fact of the unemployment figures. I know that that's a problem. But what's wrong with our economy is the Federal Reserve System, those corrupt bankers that we've been talking about, that it's even against the Constitution. And what I know, one of the things that I found out a couple of months ago is that there is more gold in the world than people realize.
Well, let's talk about that, because
it's much more than the gold. There's I forget what that group is that certifies how much gold is in existence.
The World Gold Council.
There is an enormous amount of gold, and I know who the person is who's got the signature authority to bring this gold out of it's in the bank vault. In one of the places it is the Bank of Hawaii. There's 170,000 metric tons.
And this
is more than people. Yes.
And
this is more than people. Excuse me?
That's a figure you mentioned in that Russian TV interview you did. And when you're talking about that, there's something. Are you referring to what's been called Yamashita's treasure?
No, that's even more. That's on top of it.
Okay. So Yamashita's treasure, folks, just a little background. After World War II, it's been reported, many secret deals were made by the United States government to let Japanese war criminals, especially the top criminal, their emperor and the royal family, off the hook. And in exchange for much of the stolen gold that they had pilfered out of the Chinese and across Asia as they conquered gold, silver, gems, antiquities, it was supposedly secretly taken by the U.S. government insiders, particularly an organization called the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which is the predecessor to the CIA, and various generals supposedly in our military. So this is where the CIA got its first big financing under the table, of course, and this secret dealing was itself, some people believe, one of the greatest crimes of the 20th century. So in addition to that cash that you're talking about, that stash of gold, Yamashita, there's even more gold.
Yes, there's more gold than people can dream about. And it has been in hiding, and it needs to be taken out. And I can tell you...
well, who's hiding it? Who's hiding it, Karen?
Okay. Who is hiding it is the Vatican, and there's something called the black nobility.
Okay.
And those are in cahoots.
And why are they hiding it rather than spending it, for example?
Because they want the people to be subservient to them. It's a power grab. And they're not entitled to it because there are terms. It's held in a trust. And I have actually described exactly what the history is, and that is up now. There's a if you go on my Twitter page, where you don't even have to be, go on my Twitter page.
And what is that? What is that?
And
Twitter
you'll
page?
see a link to that.
What's the Twitter page address, Karen, for our listeners?
It's at Karen Hudes, and you'll get a link to a document which talks about the history of this gold, because it started going into hiding among the interconnected royal families at the end of the 1800s. And it's just been accumulating.
And is it some of this gold that's utilized to suppress markets, or are they just keeping it for a rainy day? I mean, what is their plan with this stash of gold?
The banks that have this and the Vatican that has this, although it doesn't belong to them, are earning a lot of money on it all the time. They're getting the float.
And what are they going to do with it eventually?
It's not up to them. It's not theirs. It's in a trust for the benefit of all the humanity.
So there
are certain other beneficiaries, and what's happened is the International Court of Justice and the judges there are part of this plot, and they have assigned the task of preparing projects on our behalf. And I went to the people who claim that they're doing this legally. And I said, I want to see your papers. I still haven't seen the papers. You know what their response was to me? They said, tell me what project you want.
So how do we...
I've gotten all kinds of offers. I can't begin to tell you what kind of offers I've been getting.
So how do we...
The last offer I got was for me to become a member of the Illuminati. And my response is also on the Internet. You can see that response. I'm not going to trouble your listeners over the phone with my response to that offer.
So, Karen, how do we free this gold, these precious metals, for all of humanity to benefit from?
First of all, everybody has to know about it, and they have to sit tight. They do not have to overthrow their government, because they are their government, and the rule of law will govern. We just need to bring them on board. So this business with the truckers coming, people want to declare martial law in the worst way, so that we're totally dejected and will take any old thing, including their rule. And that should not happen. So the most important thing is for people to network with all of their neighbors and to hold the government accountable. Go to your county executives and work through the county executives, and then get the governors. There's a group of 10 governors called the Council of Governors, and they're supposed to be in charge of preventing martial law. They're inciting martial law. I've been faxing these people, and I told them to be sure to get me into the annual meeting. Where were they? I was calling them. I was holding them to account. Now you have to hold them to account. They're not delivering. They're part of the problem. They're not part of the solution. Who do they think they are?
So the banking elite, the New World Order, the bad guys, let's call them, they want to institute martial law, correct?
Well, at this point, what's happened is they have lost all credibility. They have lost all credibility. And so they're not even contenders. The people now that are trying to gain the reins over the United States and assume the position, they think it's kind of like ring out the old and ring in the new. It's the Vatican working in combination with the Chinese. They figure that the American people can't get their act together, and they're wrong. And I've told them that.
So we need to contact our elected representatives, our governors, and say, look, no martial law, right? And then let's go back to this wealth that is sitting in the Vatican and wherever.
Give them two messages. Say, first of all, there's no martial law. Second of all, if you don't get with the program when the Constitutional Convention comes, you are going to find yourself lost because you don't know how to govern.
And then, what do we need to do to free this 170,000 tons of gold on behalf of humanity?
No. That's just one piece of it. Then there's another 100,000 metric tons in different banks in the United States. There's a whole bunch of it in Singapore. There's a whole bunch of it. I don't have the papers in front of me.
Sure.
There's about 500,000 metric tons. That's just in the bank vault. And then there's another 200,000 metric tons, not just gold, jewels, all of the treasure of the earth, buried. Now, it used to be in caves that were dug by Japanese prisoners of war, and then those poor fellows were left in the caves.
Actually, they blew up the caves, is what I heard, right, and killed them all inside of it.
But the gold was taken out, and now it's reburied in the Philippines.
So, Karen, how can folks follow this information that you talk? They can go to your Twitter account. They could also go to your website, which is really quite good, at Hudes, Hudes.net. Karen, I appreciate all that you do to educate and empower every single one of our listeners and folks around the world. Folks, you're listening to Operation Freedom. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting live from Wham Talk 1600. We're here every Sunday from 3 to 5 Eastern.